Liquidity ratios problem 2. The financial statements for Banana Company include the following items. There's a table presenting the information by 20x9 and 20x8. Cash 20x9, $52,500. Cash 20x8, $42,000. Short-term investments 20x9, $33,000. Short-term investments 20x8, $14,000. Net accounts receivable 20x9, $62,000. Net accounts receivable 20x8, $51,000. Merchandise inventory 20x9, $161,000. Merchandise inventory 20x8, $43,000. Total assets 20x9, $529,000. Total assets 20x8, $547,000. Accounts payable 20x9, $133,500. Accounts payable 20x8, $132,000. Salaries payable 20x9, $19,000. Salaries payable 20x8, $12,000. Long-term note payable 20x9, $56,000. Long-term note payable 20x8, $51,000. Compute the current ratio for 20x8. We're looking at the current ratio for 20x8. Remember that the current ratio is part of the liquidity analysis. Different types of ratios out there broken up into liquidity, profitability, solvency, and there's other types of categories as well, but those are the main ones. So current ratio goes under liquidity analysis. Liquidity analysis evaluates the ability of a company to convert current assets into cash. And again, within the liquidity analysis, there's even groupings: current position, accounts receivable analysis, and inventory analysis. The current ratio goes into the current position, which is working capital, current ratio, and quick ratio. Now, the working capital is current assets minus current liabilities and helps show the company's ability to pay current liabilities. The issue with the working capital is it's a dollar amount, so you can't compare it from one large company to a small company because that's comparing apples to oranges. The benefit of the current ratio is it's a similar calculation to the working capital ratio, again, current assets minus current liabilities, but this one is done as a percentage or a ratio, and it takes into account total current assets over total current liabilities. So that is our calculation. We're taking total current assets over our total current liabilities. And again, the current ratio is a more reliable indicator of a company's ability to pay its current liabilities than its working capital, because working capital is just current assets minus current liabilities. It gives you a dollar amount. So this is the current ratio is just this formula: total current assets over total current liabilities. We need to go through now our different items and determine which of these items are current assets and which are current liabilities. The question's asking for 20x8. We can eliminate the 20x9 column. That's irrelevant. We don't need to worry about that. We do not need to worry about that. So we got 20x8. We just crossed out 20x9. Let's go through all these items and determine which ones are current assets, which are current liabilities, and which we can ignore. Cash, current asset. Short-term investments, current asset. Remember, current assets are assets that will be around for a year or less. They won't be beyond that from a reasonable assumption. Net accounts receivable, current asset. Merchandise inventory, current asset. Total assets, that's not current asset because you could have property, plant, equipment in there. Accounts payable, that's a current liability. Those are liabilities due within 1 year or less. Salaries payable, it's a current liability. Long-term note payable, that's long-term. It's not current, so that is not important. So we can ignore long-term note payable. All right, we have our current assets and our current liabilities. So now what we need to do is our current asset calculation. Let's add that up. We've got cash, $42,000. We've got short-term investments of $14,000. We've got net accounts receivable of $51,000. We've got merchandise inventory of $43,000. That gives us total current assets equal to $150,000. $150,000. Now we have to determine our current liabilities. Our current liabilities, that equal $132,000 accounts payable plus the salaries payable number, which is $12,000, and that gives us current liabilities of $144,000. And now we're going to put together our little calculation of total current assets, $150,000, over total current liabilities, $144,000, and that gives us 1.04. 1.04. Now, that is the answer to this question, but let's just think about what's going on. You got total current assets over total current liabilities, and the current ratio, again, is helping to understand a company's ability to pay its current liabilities. And the idea is that the higher this ratio is, means that there's more current assets available to pay off the current liabilities. So if a company was to liquidate, the current assets would be sold off. Again, we know they're not going to be sold off for exactly their book amount that they're on the books. But let's say that this ratio was 300,000 over 100,000. That's a 3.0 ratio. So if we sell off the inventory, we sell off the receivables, we sell off these things, and let's say even we get 2/3 of the 300,000, we get 200,000, we'd be able to pay off our current liabilities to our debtors. Now it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Things start getting a little bit more gray. If the ratio is under 1, that's when there's big concern by creditors. So here it's close to a 1-to-1 ratio. There's about $150,000 of current assets, $144,000 current liabilities. The idea is that there's no perfect number. Again, depending on the industry you're in, the size of the business, there's no perfect number. The business depends also when the business has started. If it's been around for a long time, more of an issue. But if it's a new business, yeah, you're taking on more liabilities, and maybe your current assets aren't as much as they should be in the future. So the idea here is it's all a sliding scale. But when that number gets below 1, creditors, potential creditors, or even creditors that are lending money right now, they get more concerned, because if the company does liquidate, then they're not going to get their money back, is the idea. Because let's say total current assets equals $50,000 and total current liabilities are $100,000, and you're considering to loan money to this business, whether it's on accounts payable, or you're doing business and or you're performing salaries on account, and let's say the business liquidates, it's not going to be able to pay off all of the respective items. Now, or pay off all the respective liabilities. Now, there might be property, plant, equipment, but those are much harder to value in terms of what you actually can get when you sell those if you had to liquidate. So keep that in mind. That's why current assets is being used. Again, if that number gets below 1, usually there's some concern, but it's not guaranteed to be concerned. It can depend on the business.